What a headshot! What a head!
How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. In this video, I'm taking you guys through the first ultimate guide of the season. It's going to be all about Game Week 2. So if you guys are new to the channel, don't exactly know what the ultimate guide revolves around, this is basically going to be kind of a Game Week preview for the upcoming Game Week. So in the ultimate guides, we go over some various talking points. If you guys have any questions, if I've seen any questions over on FPL Twitter, on my new Discord channel, that sort of thing, I try to combine all those questions into one single video, and then you're also going to talk about captaincy and transfer plans. At the start of every ultimate guide, I'm going to take you guys through some stats and my own personal watch list, as there might be some plays highlighted here that you guys aren't focusing on. Now, if there are any additions that you guys want me to make for the ultimate guide, you can drop them down in the comments below, or as usual, every game week, if you have any questions, just ask them in my Twitter DMs, on my Twitter replies, or just in the Discord channel in general. But hopefully you guys have had a great Game Week 1. Game Week 2 looks pretty set. I think most managers have actually made their transfer for their team selections, or they're just kind of banking a transfer. But there's still some question marks about someone like a Mason Mount. Should you do Haaland in for Kane if you haven't already? And obviously the big one, Mo Salah or Haaland for captaincy. So I'm going to be covering all those hot topics in this video, so sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So I mentioned in the introduction that I'm going through my watch list, but I've kind of changed this up. I generally think most watch lists are a little bit useless just because there's so many options in FPL at the end of the day, and in the current state, you can't own them all. So what generally happens is if you don't own someone like a Darwin or you don't own someone like a Foden, they're always going to be on your watch list because they're just such good players and they play for such good teams. So I decided to kind of switch this up, so I'm not going to be going through a watch list, I'm going to be going through a stats list. I'm going to be going over some stats that I've decided are quite integral to FPL's kind of performance, and I'll be going through them from a player basis but also a team basis. Now in this video, I'm going to focus only on Game Week 1 because I'm not going to kind of focus on the previous seasons. But as the game weeks kind of go on, I might kind of combine these, summate them to kind of reflect a large period, maybe Game Week 1 to Game Week 10, that sort of thing. Or I might do it more short term, kind of looking at the last 2 game weeks, or maybe last 6 game weeks. So I don't know if you guys agree with me. If you want me to go back to a traditional watch list, I can always go through that. But I just think there's so much information, and as I said, so many options in FPL. But I want to show you guys which of these players are performing quite well. So the first stat that we're going to be going over is going to be expected goals non-penalty. Now the reason I've gone for an expected goals non-penalty is that I just think with penalties they kind of inflate XG. So yes, that could actually take away some penalties, so maybe that makes an option even worse. Just think of an Ivan Toney. He got quite a few penalties towards the end of last season, but the fact of the matter is he still was getting FPL points when he scored those. But I just think for kind of upcoming planning, you can't really revolve around penalties. I mean, for example, Haaland, who would have predicted that he would have got a penalty? Who would have predicted that he was actually on penalties for Man City? That's a whole different story. So that's why I decided to take that out of account, and we're only be going for XG non-penalty. Now in terms of XG, that's a whole other debate. If you guys don't like expected stats, that sort of thing, completely understand it. I personally like to use it, and that's how I want to cover it in my videos. So what we'll be going through here is the top 5 players that had the highest non-penalty XG in Game Week 1. Now you guys might have your guess for the number 1, but you probably are going to be surprised when you hear that it's Gross from Brighton. So the Brighton midfielder came in with a massive XG of 1.13 that resulted in 2 goals for him against Manchester United, which was a little bit of a shock result there. Now Brighton's next 2 are going to be Newcastle at home and West Ham away, so those are 2 tough games, and that's why I would advise maybe give Gross 1 or 2 game weeks. I think come Game Week 4 you might want to go for him. Brighton have some nice fixtures coming up, but I just don't know if I'm too keen on any of their assets. So a little surprise here, but if you guys do want to focus on maybe a more budget midfielder, Gross might be the man to actually go for. The next player you probably predicted, it's going to be Haaland from Man City, who racked up a 1.09 expected goals non-penalty, and as I mentioned, that obviously doesn't include that penalty that he scored. So Haaland's actual XG was going to be sky high here, probably over 2 because the penalty usually counts as quite a high XG. But this just shows you that he was deserved of that goal, and he might have actually got something a little bit extra. Now that West Ham away fixture was a lot easier than anticipated. I kind of overestimated West Ham, thought it might be a little bit tougher for Haaland, and that's why I personally went with Kane. But when you guys see the next 2 fixtures, Bournemouth at home and Newcastle away, I definitely think Haaland's the number 1 transfer in this week. Talking about kind of premium strikers, we're going to move on to the next option, Darwin Núñez with a massive 1.04, and I say massive because with Haaland he played kind of 70 minutes, with Darwin he only played for 40 minutes. So yes, in that Fulham away game, Darwin managed to rack up 1 XG, and that's just simply insane. Fixtures coming up aren't too great, Crystal Palace at home and Manchester United away, but I do expect Darwin to start both of those games as Firmino looks a little bit rusty. Now Darwin for me, while he will be on my watch list and my stats list, I want to give him kind of another 2 game weeks or so. I just want to see how Liverpool's set up with him and see if that 40-minute XG translates into 90 minutes, because if it does, he's going to be absolute FPL gold. Now the striker XG continues here. You guys can see kind of a trend. The strikers always get more XG unless it's Harry Kane, because in a 4-1 win, I think his XG was about 0.2. So yes, I might still be salty about game week 1, but let's go on to the next striker, and that's going to be Callum Wilson from Newcastle. So Wilson managed to rack up 0.86 in that game against Nottingham Forest at home. Now this fixture was quite a strong one for Newcastle. Their XG was quite high, their XG conceded was quite low, which we will see in the upcoming talking points. But I do think Callum Wilson is the kind of medium price forward to actually go for. However, I think going for him might be in a kind of couple game weeks time. Brighton away is a tough game, and then Man City at home, probably the worst fixture that you guys can have in the game. As you saw with West Ham, Man City just control the game. So Callum Wilson will be on my stats list and my watch list for now, but I do think the Nottingham Forest game kind of inflated it because they just simply played pretty badly. Now the last option to go for, finally, we have another midfielder. It's going to be Martinelli with 0.84. So he managed to rack up a goal in that game against Crystal Palace away and just showed what a great option he is at that price point. Now fixtures upcoming for Arsenal are Leicester at home and Bournemouth away. Two great fixtures from an attacking point of view, and that's why I think you guys have to have an Arsenal attacker. So these 5 players are going to be your top 5 non-penalty XG options for game week 1. How many of these do you own? I think Haaland and Martinelli will be quite popular, but definitely Darwin and Callum Wilson are on my radar, and unfortunately with Gross, I think this might just be kind of a once-off game. Now the next stat to go over is going to be expected assists, and the reason for this is that we've just gone over XG. It favors the strikers. Let's favor the midfielders with that kind of XA, and that's exactly what these players are going to be about. So not as mentioned midfielders there, but the first player is actually going to be a defender. It's going to be Zinchenko from Arsenal with 0.64. So what this basically means is that he was expected to get 0.64 of an assist against Crystal Palace away, and that's pretty strong for a defender. Now there were some question marks about Zinchenko playing left back or playing in midfield, but this does definitely show that the left back slot is probably where he's preferred. Now as with Martinelli in the previous talking point, fixtures upcoming are quite strong. However, I don't exactly know how much from a defensive point of view these are going to be great fixtures. I think Leicester at home is a pretty tough one, and I think Bournemouth away could potentially be a clean sheet. But with Zinchenko, we're proving here that he has that attacking threat, so who cares about the defensive returns? It just will depend if he starts most games, but it does look like Arteta likes him. We're then going to move on to another option that is going to be a striker. It's going to be a return of Darwin Núñez with 0.62 against Fulham away. And as I mentioned with the previous talking point, this is within 40 minutes, guys. So 40 minutes of Darwin resulted in a high XG, high expected assists. I mean, he just looks like a great FPL asset. Nice fixtures coming up, but we've already spoken about them, so let's go to the next option, who returns from a team that we've already spoken about. It's going to be Danny Welbeck from Brighton with 0.6 XA against United away. So like with Gross, this is a wait and see for me, but the nice thing about Welbeck is that he does come in quite cheap, so if you guys want a nice budget kind of a striker to go for, he could be the man. Next up is going to be Wolves, a team that I own Pedro Neto from, so unfortunately he's not here, but Hwang is going to be here with a nice XA of 0.55. So Hwang did get an assist in that game against Leeds for Podence, and with fixtures are coming against Fulham at home and Spurs away, I think I might wait and see on this one. But yet again, a nice cheap option. Wolves attacking players seem to be the cheap options of choice. It's going to depend if they can rack up some goals in the upcoming game weeks. And then we're going to feature a player from that exact same fixture, Wolves versus Leeds. It's going to be Harrison with 0.53. Now with the return of Bamford, Harrison looks like a rejuvenated player. I think he's going to get some more attacking returns. Leeds look stronger under the new manager. And with fixtures are coming in Southampton away and Chelsea at home, I think game week 2 might be where you guys want to target, because game week 3 probably is going to be a little bit tough. But it is nice to see that some of these cheaper options like a Welbeck, a Hwang, and a Harrison are going to be on our radar. And with Zinchenko, did you guys actually go for the Arsenal left back, or did you go for someone like a Gabriel, or maybe even a Ben White? Now the next talking point is going to revolve around the teams, so this is going to be the start of the kind of team section. The players we've already covered, however I can always add some different stats if you guys consider those to be more useful. But generally I think XG and XA are what we're going to probably look at. Now the first talking point about the teams is going to revolve around shots. Now shots are a little bit ambiguous. I mean, having lots of shots does not exactly correlate to lots of goals. But what I wanted to show here is the teams that are actually taking a lot of shots, but also getting shots on target. So these are going to be the top 5 teams with the most shots on target. However, I've also combined them with total shots just to give you guys some metrics. So the first team to cover is going to be Newcastle at a massive 23 shots and 10 on target against Nottingham Forest. And what I wanted to show you here is not exactly Newcastle on its own, it's also the team they faced. So Nottingham Forest conceded the most amount of shots in game week 1, and therefore I would target them from an attacking point of view just because they look quite susceptible defensively. So what you guys can look at here is Newcastle had a lot of shots, but Nottingham Forest conceded a lot, so both of these two teams are going to be on your radar. The next team is going to be Spurs, who took 18 shots and 8 on target, but don't worry, Harry Kane only took 1 of those shots. So Southampton at home proved to be quite a good fixture. I think for the upcoming game week, Southampton will be a team to target. Spurs are great from an attacking point of view, however it's hard to predict who's going to score more of their goals, Son, Kane or their wingbacks. Next up was Wolves, which was a little bit surprising here because they generally do struggle from an attacking point of view, but this might show that this season they are a different team, and that's quite nice as a Pedro Neto owner. So 15 shots and 6 on target against Leeds away, and I think most of us would have predicted Leeds to be a little bit more of a susceptible defensive side, so I'm still going to target them with my players. We then have Chelsea up next with the exact same kind of shots metric, 15 shots, 6 on target, against the Everton side that played 5 at the back. So if you were a Chelsea attacking owner like a Mason Mount, might consider yourself a little bit unlucky, but with a tough fixture against Spurs at home, I might wait for game week 3 to kind of consider them. And then finally, we're going to have Leicester with that 2-2 draw against Brentford at home, 14 shots, 5 on target. Nice to see they're still getting quite forward, but defensively, I'm a little bit worried about Leicester. So this is going to be the top 5 teams that had the most shots on target in game week 1. However, as I mentioned, quite hard to measure if this is actually a result in FPL points. The next metric, however, will be quite easy to relate to points because this is going to be expected goals of each of these teams. So just like the previous talking point with shots, we're going to have the team on the left but also the team on the right. So for example, if the team on the left had a high XG, that means the team on the right or the team they faced had a pretty bad defensive department. For example, let's take the first team, Man City, who had the highest XG. Now just remember, this will be including penalties, so that's why these numbers are a little bit inflated. But Man City had an XG of 2.2 against West Ham away. So this just shows you that you've got to target Man City from an attacking point of view, but West Ham from a defensive point of view weren't that great, but I guess you can understand that when they were facing the best team in the Prem. With fixtures upcoming against Bournemouth at home and Newcastle away, I would definitely consider some of these Man City assets, and I would almost try triple up. Another team that had a pretty strong performance is going to be Newcastle with 1.94 against Nottingham Forest. Now I don't exactly know if this was Newcastle playing well or Nottingham Forest playing badly, but you guys can kind of decide for yourself. Tough fixtures are coming for Newcastle though, so I might avoid them and bring them in when they have great fixtures. The next team is pretty predictable. It's going to be Liverpool with 1.81 against Fulham, so pretty close to the 2 goals that they actually scored. And like West Ham away, I don't really think we can rate Fulham too much on this one because Liverpool are a great attacking side. 2 fixtures coming up, Crystal Palace at home and United away. Quite tough fixtures in my opinion, but with this Liverpool attack, you're probably always going to get returns. We then have Brighton with 1.61 against United away, so a little bit of a surprise result there. So this might be United playing badly, but also Brighton apparently played pretty well, so you might want to target their teams when the fixtures look slightly better. We're then going to have Chelsea, who came 5th with 1.58 against Everton away. However, they did also get a penalty that Jorginho converted, so that might have inflated the XG quite a bit. That Spurs at home fixture will be quite interesting for me from a Chelsea point of view. Don't really know how that game's going to go. Can see it being quite cagey, can see it being quite high scoring, but the Leeds in game week 3 fixture is where I definitely think the points are going to come. So these are going to be the top 5 teams with the XG in game week 1. You can target the teams on the left and the right. On the left if you're going to own their assets, and on the right if your players face them. So we've spoken about kind of XG and attacking point of view. Let's talk about the defensive side of things with XG conceded. So what this is basically saying is how many goals should these teams have actually conceded. And we're going to start off with Newcastle, who had a pretty good game against Nottingham Forest. So as with the previous talking point, on the left you target the defenders and on the right you target the defenders that face these teams. And it seems like Nottingham Forest is definitely a team that we should potentially be targeting. Now I think if you guys started with the Newcastle defender like a Trippier, 100%, but I don't exactly know if I'll be bringing them in because Brighton away and Man City at home look like quite tough fixtures. The next team I definitely advise though, it's going to be Man City with 0.21 against West Ham away. Basically shows that West Ham put up nothing from an attacking point of view. And with those next 2 fixtures, I've actually doubled up with those defenders. The next team might be a little bit surprised here. It's going to be Brentford. If you guys remember, Leicester had some of the best shots in game week 1, but Brentford only conceded 0.45 XG. So if you guys were a Raya owner, might feel a little bit hard done by, as Leicester's XG wasn't actually that high. Now that United at home fixture is going to be a little bit of an interesting one. I'm sure Ten Hag is going to look to rebound after the loss to Brighton. And then the Fulham away game could actually be a clean sheet for Brentford as well. Now the next team I'm super happy to see, it's because I own Reece James. So Chelsea conceded 0.45 XG against Everton away. And I really needed that clean sheet for my own team. So nice to see that Chelsea are keeping up a good form, but I don't think Everton are the best opposition. So that game week 2 fixture against Spurs is going to be quite interesting to see if that Chelsea defense is as good as we're expecting. And then finally, definitely the team that surprised me for the top 5, it's going to be Bournemouth, who conceded 0.47 against Aston Villa. And I honestly thought that Aston Villa would score a few against this newly promoted side. But I wouldn't pay too much attention to these assets because Man City away, Arsenal at home, 2 very tough games from a defensive point of view. But it's nice to see that a newly promoted side can put in a good shift for game week 1. So overall guys, this is going to be kind of the stats list and the watch list combined. Let me know if there's any stats that you guys want me to add to this, as I personally find it quite useful, but you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. But now going on to the talking points relating to game week 2, and the first one is going to be the transfer plan. I'm going to discuss kind of transfers that people have been asking me on my Discord channel, on Twitter. Should you do them? Should you not? And what are the other alternatives to these potential moves? So the first move we're going to talk about is going to be Harry Kane to Haaland. And as I mentioned in the transfer plan on Monday, I've already done this move because I knew there were going to be some price rises. Harry Kane dropped on Sunday, Haaland rose in price on Sunday, so we managed to net 0.2 making the move early. But let's just say that you guys haven't made this move yet. Should you do it? Is it worth it? Well, the first thing I want to tell you guys about is please monitor the price rises, because if Harry Kane's going to drop and Haaland rises again, I would definitely do the move before those changes. I just think this move kind of makes sense. You look at Harry Kane has Chelsea away up next and Wolves at home. Now that Wolves at home game might be quite good, but you probably won't captain him anyway, and that's why the Haaland move for me looks quite attractive. So the first thing is please monitor the price rises. If you guys are kind of forced into a move, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But the second reason is probably the more important one, is please consider your captain plan. So I actually helped out one of the legends in my Discord channel. They asked me, should they do Kane to Haaland if they want to captain Salah next game week anyways? And I actually told them no. The reason for that is I just think that Harry Kane provides a nice little differential option after game week 2. The game week 3 onwards look like great fixtures, and that's why I'd probably just bank the transfer and go for a different area. But for my own team, and the reason why I actually went for Haaland is that I do think I'll captain him in game week 2 against Bournemouth at home, and that's why this move is worth it, because I'm bringing in a good captaincy option. So that's something that you guys have to decide. Do you think it's worth it if you're not going to captain Haaland, or you just want to keep Harry Kane? I will tell you that I think Harry Kane will come good. I think us owners are just a little bit unlucky in game week 1. And I mean, he might even still score against Chelsea, and Haaland might blank in game week 2. You guys know how FPL is. I've already transferred out Kane, so he's probably going to score, and Haaland, my captain, is probably going to blank. But let me know if you guys have already done this move. If you haven't, what are you guys going to do? Are you going to captain Mo Salah? Are you going to captain Haaland if you bring him in? What's the current transfer plan? Now the next transfer plan is going to revolve around Mason Mount. I know a lot of you guys do own him. If you guys watch my Elite 64 team, 25% of the Elite 64 own Mason Mount. And it seems like most people actually want to take the Chelsea midfielder out. So fixtures upcoming are going to be Spurs at home and Leeds away. The Leeds away game is going to be quite a nice fixture to go for. So I would just hold on to him if you guys want to. But let's just say that you don't really have a transfer to make this week and you want to make one for the upcoming game weeks. Be a little bit more aggressive. Well, there are kind of two routes that you guys can kind of go on. So the first route that you guys can consider is more of a safe route. This is going to be if you guys don't own an Arsenal triple up, you could always just move him to Saka at the same price point. So Saka has Leicester at home and then Bournemouth away, two great fixtures from an attacking point of view, and that's why I would really favour this move, even if you have to triple up on the Arsenal attack. So for me, this is going to be a safe move because Arsenal have some great fixtures coming up. You're kind of prolonging the points return from that because of the great fixtures from about game week 2 to about game week 7. So Saka can really repay you for that transfer. But let's just say that you guys want to be a little bit more differential, go for a little bit more of an attack mindset. I think that you guys should go for a Man City midfielder. Now, which Man City midfielder to go for? Should you guys go for Grealish, Mahrez, or Foden? Well, I think Mahrez is the interesting one because he was benched in game week 1, should probably start in game week 2, but who kind of knows? And I guess you bring in a player that's a little bit of a rotation risk. So this is why this is more of an aggressive option because you're targeting that Bournemouth at home game. I think Mahrez should potentially start, but on the left-hand side, is it going to be Phil Foden or Jack Grealish? Well, I think if you want to be a little bit more kind of medium term, I think that I would personally go for Phil Foden. I just see him starting the majority of games in that forward line for Man City, and that's why he's my favorite option to actually bring in. So if I was to bring in a Man City midfielder, it would be Phil Foden. I just think Jack Grealish and Mahrez are too much of a rotation risk, and I think Phil Foden, as I mentioned, will get more minutes out of those three. But should you actually take Mason Mount out? I don't exactly know. I think that Spurs game might actually be a good game for Chelsea. They might always score in it. Mason Mount might be involved. And I think the Chelsea fixtures after that look pretty good from an attacking point of view. So what I would say is that if you guys have other plans, other fires to put out, I wouldn't. But if you guys don't have any, you're pretty set for game week 2 and you want to be a bit more aggressive, I think both of these two moves could work. Now the final talking point is going to revolve around captaincy, and this week it's going to be between one option and another. So it's going to be kind of a 50-50 decision here, but I will give an honourable mention to Arsenal, who do have a pretty good fixture against Leicester at home. Now my only concern about Arsenal is that it seems like the goals could be pretty split. Jesus blanked, Martinelli got a goal, Saka an assist in game week 1. She's not really nailing a talisman from that team, but I will say that I think that Arsenal will do well there, so if you guys want to go Maverick, you can also go for those assets. I just think personally it's between two options. It's going to be Mo Salah and also Erling Haaland, and I think between these two you guys can get that differential effect if you want to go for that. The reason I'm saying that is I just think that most people will probably captain Haaland. I generally think that Salah could be a bit more of a differential, and the nice thing about him is that he only plays on Monday. So you guys know in FPL it's kind of one of those things you love when your captain plays as late as possible, and you're getting that in game week 2 because the Liverpool vs Crystal Palace happens on Monday night. However, in my personal opinion, I do think that Erling Haaland is the better captain this week. I just think Man City are looking great. I'm just a little bit worried about the potential that Darwin is going to have in that striker department for Liverpool. Is the style going to change? Who kind of knows? What role will Mo Salah have? But I guess on history and game week 1 when he came on, Mo Salah looked even better. So that might be a little bit of an excuse there for me to captain the Man City forward, but I just generally think it's super close between these two, and I honestly hope that there's not too much points difference between them. So for my own personal team, I'm going to be going for Haaland, as I think I've brought him in. It was always the plan to captain him game week 2. Then that Crystal Palace team is quite good defensively. I know it is at Anfield, but I think Liverpool always kind of struggled sometimes against Crystal Palace. And that's why for me, more points kind of turn towards the Norwegian. But I still do think that Mo Salah will do well, and I can't even say that he's a safe option because more people will probably go for the Man City striker, so please take that also into account. The one thing I also read today is that I think most people captain Mo Salah in Game Week 1, so let's just say that some managers forget about the deadline for Game Week 2 or have just generally lost interest. I actually saw this over on FPL Twitter. Who Got the Assist? That's a podcast, posted this thought, but they just said that, do you think the effective ownership of Mo Salah will be quite high because some managers have forgotten about their teams already? But this is the best wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't like it if you did and subscribe if you're new, subscribe yet. I'll be seeing you guys for the team selection tomorrow, so make sure that those bell notifications are on as you guys can see my captain and my transfer plan heading into that Game Week 2 deadline. But I'm signing off. It's me, Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.